Hi everyone, I'm Autistic Ange. This is a podcast for adults who recently found out they're autistic and are looking for understanding and other people like them. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a therapist, I'm just sharing my own experiences and perspectives as I work my way through life with a more informed lens of who I am. And maybe others will be able to relate. I'm going to start off with self-identification versus diagnosis because I've got some feelings about this one. Just reiterating here that these are my thoughts. I'm not saying you don't need to get diagnosed, and I'm not saying you do need to get diagnosed. So, as I mentioned in the introduction, I'm self-identified autistic. This realization came about after months of wondering what was going on with me. I've always been pretty good at figuring things out about myself, so the fact that I missed this autism piece is just crazy to me. But for the first half of this year, my emotions went completely haywire, as did my body. I felt like I had stuck my finger in a socket. Suddenly I was having IBS issues, which were likely exacerbated in part by my roller coaster of emotions. I was feeling emotionally neglected by my wife. My wife has depression and really got sucked into it this year. I didn't know it had gotten that bad because A, she continued to go to work and do all the things, and B, she didn't tell me her depression was kicking her ass like that. She's in her second year of grad school, works full-time, and has very little time left to herself after homework's done. She was just trying to stay afloat, and we weren't even in the same boat, so I wasn't helping her. She wasn't emotionally available for me. But after months of wondering why I was crying for hours every night, why I literally felt a kind of emotional pain that I'd never experienced before, I felt like I was going crazy. I was constantly like, what's wrong with me? Why am I acting like this? This is not me. It's not me. I didn't know what the fuck was going on with me, and it was freaking me out. I just could not figure it out. I couldn't figure it out. And if you listen to the intro episode, you know I stopped going to therapy because the pandemic had started. I didn't want to do Zoom sessions because they're just not for me. But had I done them, maybe I could have found some stuff out sooner. I've heard something along the lines of epiphanies can be born from high emotional states or like when you're going through some real shit or something. Some bug got into my ear about, well, what if you are autistic? When that started happening, I had recently watched Love on the Spectrum on Netflix and read Hannah Gadsby's book where she talked about her autism. I knew I didn't identify with the people on Love on the Spectrum, but then I read Hannah's book, and she's a comedian, so you should definitely check her out. And a lot of what she talked about was eerily similar to shit I've been through. How she thought about things sounded like how I thought about things. For some context, I've grown a lot over the years, and I'm not the same person as I was in my 20s. I mean, if anyone is the same as how they were in their 20s, that's probably not a good thing. I was an asshole to the extreme. I'm not even the same person I was 5 years ago. I don't even recognize those versions of myself. But I've been in therapy for like a total of 6 or 7 years, and I've done a lot of work on myself. I learned a lot of shit about myself, and I also changed a lot of what I didn't like that I was doing. So now, at the age of 39, I can safely say that I know who I am, although how the fuck did I miss being autistic? Anyway, nobody in their right mind would pretend to be autistic. They wouldn't spend the money on the books, do the research, try to find decent podcasts if they weren't autistic. Like, who would do that? I self-identify because I 1,000% know I'm autistic. I felt myself shift as soon as it clicked in my head. It was another version of me, but the best version, I think. The version that provided me with knowledge, understanding, and most importantly, acceptance of myself. I felt like a whole person for the first time. There's something to be said about like the different levels of awareness we have and how unlocking each level is a testament to the hard work we put in to get to know our true selves. But that immediate awareness was a superb 5 minutes until the doubts started creeping in. Wait, am I autistic? I mean, I know I am, but am I? Will anyone believe me? It took me a few weeks for me to believe that my own wife believed me. I told my therapist and a friend, and that's about it for now. They were really great about it. I've heard people say that, like, when they found out that they're autistic in adulthood and told people, a lot of people wouldn't believe them. They'd say things like, no, you're not, or the terrible, well, everyone's a little autistic. That's not true. You either are or you aren't. It's not something you can shake off or make go away. So then I started thinking, well, if I get a diagnosis, then others will have to believe me. But then my thoughts turned to, will I even get a diagnosis? What if the assessors don't even believe me? So I eventually decided I didn't need to get an official diagnosis for a few reasons. First, I know I'm autistic. Second, I don't work for people anymore. I work for myself, so I don't need workplaces accommodations or things like that. Also, there isn't anywhere nearby I can go to for an assessment, and I'm not sure if I'd have to pay out of pocket. I've heard you can get an assessment done online via Zoom, but I just can't do that. I just can't Zoom. For some reason, I have way less anxiety seeing a professional in person than I would over the computer. Maybe it has something to do with like not being able to read them that well, or there being delays here and there, but not something I want to deal with. So let's see. I understand that some people might be put off by my not having an official diagnosis, and that's okay, but I don't need someone else telling me what I already know to be true about me. I've had tons of people throughout my life telling me what I should be, or how I should act, or what I should do, and I'm tired of it. So trust me when I say I am as autistic as they come. Now, if you do want to get a diagnosis, then go for it. Just make sure you're not masking during the assessment, because then what's the point? I mean, I masked so well my entire life that I didn't even know I'm autistic. Like, how fucked up is that? But go and do your research, see if there's any specialists near you, how much you'll have to pay out of pocket, if you'll have to pay, etc., and schedule an appointment. The wait lists apparently are like 6 months and up, so book one now. And you might even be totally fine with doing an assessment via Zoom, so you can try that too. If you aren't self-employed, you may find you'll want a diagnosis. Unfortunately, we need to prove to others what some will refuse to believe. So that piece of paper will come in handy for sure. You can look into getting accommodations for work. For example, maybe you have like your own office and you need to close your door a lot to drown out the background noise. Maybe you have fluorescent lights and want to get a lamp. Maybe you'd like it if coworkers only spoke to you if it was work related. That way you don't have to deal with the awkwardness of socializing. I have tons of stories about my work experiences that I'll share with you later. Even like thinking about that stuff makes me cringe. So from what I understand, autism assessments are helpful if maybe you suspect that you or your child, for example, might be autistic, but you're not quite sure. They're helpful for the workplace accommodations I just mentioned, which I've heard is the main reason people want an official diagnosis. I completely understand that, support it, and if I'd known about being autistic and was still working for assholes, I for sure would have done whatever I could to get assessed. It was that bad. Like, I'm not exaggerating when I say that I have PTSD from like all the shit that I had to go through. So this whole do I get diagnosed or not can be like a back and forth battle for a bit until you settle into your acceptance of being autistic and make a more informed decision. At least that's how it was for me. I can't pinpoint what moment it was that made me decide that I don't want a diagnosis, but I know a huge deciding factor was that I'm working for myself and I don't need the accommodations like I mentioned. I mean, unless anyone out there knows something I don't about being autistic and working from home, maybe I'm not like considering other ways in which it could be helpful for me, even without having like, quote, normal employment. So if I'm missing something, please fill me in because I like to have as much info as possible. Let's see. I guess that's it. Sorry, it was a short episode. There's not much more I can think to tell you about the subject other than do what you feel is best for you. Anyway, that's all I've got for now. This was just me recording into an app on my phone, hoping people would find me and listen and relate and maybe have a similar experience to what I had when I heard myself on someone else's podcast. Thanks for listening. Okay, bye.